The night was quiet, the streets were empty, and the wind moved slowly through the dark trees. The young man walked home after a long day, his mind tired, his steps slow. He liked the silence, but this night did not feel normal. It felt heavy, as if something was waiting to happen. He stopped when he saw a strange light in the sky. At first he thought it was only a shooting star. It moved fast, glowing bright against the black night. But then it slowed down. It did not vanish, it did not burn out. Instead, it grew larger, brighter, and it was coming closer to the ground. The young man's heart raced. He could not move. He could not believe what his eyes were showing him. The light broke through the clouds and crashed into the forest nearby. A loud sound shook the air. Birds flew away in fear, and the ground trembled under his feet. He wanted to run, but his curiosity was stronger. Something inside told him that this moment was not normal, that this night would change his life. Step by step, he walked into the forest. The smell of smoke filled the air, the trees were broken, and the soil was hot. Then he saw it. A strange object stood in the middle of the clearing. Half buried in the ground, it was not a car, not a plane, not anything human. It was a small pod, round and shining with strange silver light. The surface looked alive, moving softly like water. The young man's breath caught when he heard a weak sound inside the pod. It was not a machine sound. It was the sound of someone breathing. He moved closer, his hands shaking. He touched the surface, and to his shock, the pod opened by itself. Inside, he saw her, a girl, but not an ordinary girl. Her skin was pale like moonlight, her hair silver and glowing in the dark. Her eyes were closed, and her chest moved slowly with weak breaths. She wore something like armor, but it was broken. Burned at the edges, she looked hurt. Fragile and lost, the young man froze. His mind screamed at him to leave, to run, but his heart told him something different. This was not a dream, not a trick. This was real. He was standing in front of an alien. Suddenly, the girl's eyes opened. They were not human eyes. They shined with a soft blue light. For a moment, they locked with his, and he felt as if she was looking into his soul. She tried to speak, her lips moving, but the words were broken. Strange sounds mixed with a language he could not understand. Before he could react, he heard something else. Voices, but not human voices. Deep, sharp, echoing through the trees. The young man felt fear crawl up his spine. He turned his head and saw shadows moving between the trees. Someone else was there, and they were looking for her. The alien girl tried to lift her hand, pointing toward the forest, her voice weak. But he understood one thing, and she was in danger. And so was he. The young man's thoughts raced. He had two choices. He could leave her there, pretend he saw nothing and save himself, or he could help her, a stranger from another world, hunted by unknown enemies. The shadows moved closer. The strange voices grew louder. His heart pounded like a drum. He made his choice. He bent down, lifted the girl in his arms, and ran deeper into the forest. The voices shouted behind him, the shadows chasing fast. The night was no longer quiet, no longer safe. The young man did not know where he was going. He only knew one thing. This night was not normal. This night was the beginning of something bigger, something dangerous, and his life would never be the same again. The forest was dark, the branches scratching against his arms as he carried the alien girl in his arms. His legs burned, his breath was heavy, but he did not stop. Behind him, the strange voices still echoed, loud and sharp. They were hunting, and they were close. He reached an old hut at the edge of the woods, a place that had been abandoned for years. The roof was broken, the windows cracked, but it was shelter. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, stepped inside, and laid her gently on the wooden floor. The girl's chest rose and fell weakly. Her face was pale. Her silver hair spread across the dusty floor. She looked too fragile, as if she could fade away at any moment. He knelt beside her, unsure of what to do. He was only a normal man, and this was far beyond anything he could understand. Then her eyes opened again, glowing faintly blue in the shadows. She tried to sit up, but her body shook with pain. He held out his hands, whispering softly, "Don't move. You're safe now." His voice was trembling. He was not even sure if she understood. Her lips parted, strange sounds slipped out, like broken pieces of language. Then, slowly, she forced out a word that shocked him, "Help." It was not perfect, but he understood she was asking him, a stranger, for help. He swallowed hard. His mind screamed that he should not be here, that he should run far away, but his heart felt heavy. He looked into her glowing eyes and saw fear, pain, and something else, trust. Outside, the voices grew louder, closer. He peeked through the cracked window and saw shadows moving across the trees, shapes tall and frightening, glowing eyes scanning the darkness. They were not human, they were hunters. The young man's hands shook. His whole body was cold. He had a choice. He could leave her here, escape through the back, and maybe they would not follow him, or he could stay, protect her, and face whatever these hunters were. The girl reached for him, her weak hand clutching his sleeve. She whispered another word, broken but clear enough. Danger. Then she pointed at herself and then at him. Her message was simple. If they catch her, they will catch him too. His stomach twisted with fear, but deep inside he knew the truth. Running would not save him. The moment he saw the light in the sky, his fate had already changed. He was part of this now, whether he liked it or not. He grabbed an old metal pipe from the corner of the hut. It was useless against creatures from the stars, but holding it gave him courage. He turned back to her. "I'll help you," he whispered. Even if she did not understand the words, the meaning was clear in his eyes. Suddenly, the wooden door rattled. A heavy thud shook the walls. The hunters were here, searching. The girl's eyes widened with fear. She touched the strange device on her wrist, but it sparked and died. Broken, she was powerless. The young man's heart pounded louder than the banging on the door. He looked at her, then at the shadows outside. And he made his choice. He lifted her again, though his arms trembled from her weight. He kicked open the back door and ran into the night. Branches whipped against his face, the ground uneven beneath his feet. The girl clung weakly to him, her breath shallow behind them. The hunters roared. Their voices filled the night like thunder. They ran deeper into the forest, and for a moment silence returned. He stopped by a fallen tree. His chest heaving, the girl looked at him, her eyes soft but serious. She pointed to the stars above, whispered a broken phrase. "They come more." He froze. Her meaning was clear. The hunters chasing them were not the only ones. More would arrive. This was only the beginning. His head spun. He had never believed in aliens, never thought about life beyond Earth. But now one of them was in his arms, and she was telling him that his world was in danger. He could no longer pretend this was not real. He could no longer pretend this was not his problem. He looked down at her, fragile and strange, yet alive, and he made the hardest choice of his life. He would not abandon her no matter what came next. The night was no longer his own. The forest no longer felt like Earth. Every step he took pulled him deeper into a story far bigger than himself. The young man did not know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew one thing. He had chosen his path, and that choice would change his destiny forever. The night grew darker and the forest no longer felt safe. The young man's breath came heavy as he pushed forward, the alien girl weak in his arms behind him. The hunters moved like shadows, their glowing eyes flashing through the trees. Every sound of cracking branches made his heart pound harder. He stopped near a stream, setting her gently down on a rock. The water shimmered under the moonlight. He dipped his hands into it and splashed his face. His body was tired, his legs weak. But when he looked at her, lying pale and fragile, he forced himself to stay strong. The girl opened her eyes slowly. Her blue glow seemed softer now, almost fading. She whispered something, a string of words in her strange tongue. He could not understand, but he saw fear in her eyes. She pointed toward the dark forest behind them, then placed her hand on his chest. It felt like she was telling him not to give up, not to be afraid. Suddenly, a sound echoed, a sharp crack like metal against stone. He turned and froze. From the trees, tall figures stepped out, their bodies armored in black plates, their faces hidden behind masks. Their weapons glowed faint red in the night. They moved with purpose, with hunger, like predators. The young man's hands shook as he gripped the metal pipe he had carried from the hut. It felt useless against such creatures, but he raised it anyway. His heart screamed that he was only human, that he could not fight them. But his mind whispered that he had no choice. If he gave up, both he and the girl would die. The hunters closed in. Their strange voices rumbled, the sound cutting deep into his bones. One of them raised its weapon and the red glow grew brighter. The young man pulled the girl closer to him, preparing for the end, but then it happened. The alien girl raised her hand weakly. Her eyes glowed bright blue, stronger than before. A soft pulse spread out from her palm like ripples in water. The glow grew. Wrapping around them like a shield, the hunter fired, and the beam struck the blue light. But instead of burning them, it scattered like sparks. Fading into nothing, the young man gasped. His fear turned into shock. She had powers. Powers beyond his imagination. The hunters roared, confused and angry. They attacked again, but each strike hit the shield and vanished. The girl's body shook with the effort, sweat rolling down her pale skin. She was using all her strength. The young man looked at her, then at the hunters. His fear turned into something new. Courage. He shouted, swung the pipe and struck the nearest hunter's arm. The hit was weak compared to their strength, but it surprised the creature, making it stumble back. The shield flickered. The girl groaned. He realized she could not hold it for long. He had to act. He grabbed her hand, pulled her up and ran again. The hunters chased, their voices filling the forest with rage. Branches tore at his clothes. Stones cut his feet, but he did not stop. He carried her when she stumbled, pulled her forward when she was weak. Behind them, red light cut through the trees, beams burning holes in the trunks. The forest felt like a battlefield. Then, as they reached a small hill, one hunter leapt in front of them, blocking the path. Its mask reflected the moonlight, its weapon ready. The young man froze. The girl was too weak to use her shield again. The hunter aimed, its weapon glowing brighter. In that moment, the young man thought it was the end. But the girl suddenly moved, her hand touched the ground. Blue light spread across the soil, twisting roots and vines. The earth itself seemed to answer her call. Roots shot upward, wrapping around the hunter's legs. Pulling it down, the creature roared, its weapon firing wildly into the air. The young man pulled her back, eyes wide in disbelief she had saved him again. But her body slumped, her glow fading. She was almost unconscious. He looked at her, then at the fallen hunter still fighting against the roots. He knew the others would not stop. They would keep chasing until they caught her. Until they caught him too. His chest rose and fell with panic. But his mind grew sharp. He had no plan, no weapon. Nothing but his will. But now he understood. He could not keep running forever. At some point he would have to stand. The hunters' voices grew louder again, echoing through the hills. They were close, they were many. The night felt endless. The young man lifted her once more. Her head rested weakly against his shoulder. He whispered to himself, "I will not let them take you." And though he did not know how, though he did not know why, he meant every word. The chase was not over. The hunt had only begun and the night was far from finished. The forest was quiet again, but the silence did not bring peace. The young man stumbled through the trees, his arms aching from carrying the alien girl. His breath was heavy, his chest burning. Yet he pushed forward step after step. His mind still replayed the moment when she had controlled the roots, bending the earth itself to fight back the hunter. It was something he could not explain, something beyond human understanding. Finally, he reached a cave hidden behind thick vines. He pushed inside, the darkness wrapping around him. The air was cool, damp. The sound of dripping water echoed. He laid her gently on the stone floor and sat beside her, his whole body shaking with exhaustion. The alien girl's eyes flickered open, glowing faintly blue. Her lips moved, trying to form words. He leaned closer, desperate to understand. Her voice was soft, broken, but the meaning slowly became clear. "My name." "Lyra," she whispered. Her words came slowly, heavy with effort. The young man froze, shocked. She was speaking his language, not perfectly, but enough. He repeated the name under his breath. "Lyra." She nodded weakly, then pointed at herself again. "Lyra." Her eyes then moved to him. She waited. He hesitated before answering. "Daniel." She blinked, her lips moving as if testing the word. "Daniel." The sound of his name and her strange voice sent shivers through him. Her eyes then grew serious. She lifted her trembling hand and tapped her chest. "Rebel," she said. Her other hand pointed upward. Toward the night sky outside the cave, her voice broke, but the words carried weight. "My people, come destroy." Daniel's stomach twisted. The word destroy echoed inside him like thunder. He tried to stay calm. "What do you mean, destroy?" he asked, even though he knew she might not understand everything. Lyra struggled, her face tightening with pain, but she forced more words out. "Army, strong, take world, humans." She coughed, her body shaking. He quickly supported her. She looked into his eyes, the blue glow piercing through the shadows. "Stop, only way." She lifted her hand weakly and something glimmered in her palm. It was a small device no larger than a stone. Its surface pulsed with soft light like a heartbeat. She pressed it into Daniel's hand. He felt warmth, strange energy flowing through his skin. Key, she whispered. Human. Must use. Daniel stared at the object. His hand shook. Me? Why me? He whispered, his voice cracked with disbelief. He was nobody, just a simple man caught in a nightmare. Why would something this important fall into his hands? But Lyra's gaze never wavered. She looked at him with trust, with certainty, as if she had already chosen him, before he could ask more. A faint sound came from outside the cave. He froze, pressing his back against the wall. Through the crack in the entrance, he saw faint red light glowing in the distance. The hunters were still searching. They had not given up. He looked at Lyra. She was too weak to move. Too fragile to fight again, his heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to run, but something deeper held him still. He could not leave her, not now. Not after what she had told him. Lyra touched his hand again, her fingers brushing against the strange device. Protect, she whispered. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, Daniel saw something more than fear in them. He saw hope. The cave felt colder, the air heavier. Outside, the hunters' voices grew louder, echoing through the night. Daniel tightened his grip on the device. He had no idea how it worked, no idea what to do. But if she believed in him, maybe he could find the strength to believe in himself too. They sat in silence for a moment, the tension thick. Daniel's mind raced with questions. Who were her people? Why was she a rebel? What exactly did this device do? But deep inside, he knew one thing. Her presence, her words, and her trust meant that his life was no longer ordinary. He was part of something greater. The voices outside faded again, moving further into the woods. For now, they were safe. Daniel leaned back against the stone wall, exhaustion washing over him. Lyra's eyes finally closed, her breathing soft and steady. He looked down at the glowing device in his hand. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, steady. Alive, he whispered to himself. What have I gotten into? His voice trembled. But deep inside, a spark of determination began to grow. Because now the truth was clear. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about protecting Earth, protecting humanity. And whether he was ready or not, he was the only one she could count on. The night outside stretched on, the stars cold and distant. Daniel sat awake, gripping the device, listening to the slow breath of the alien girl beside him. He knew sleep would not come, not with danger so close, not with the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. This was only the beginning, and he had no idea how far it would go. The morning light crept slowly into the cave. Daniel had not slept. His back ached from the cold stone floor, but his eyes stayed open, always watching, always listening. He held the strange glowing device tight in his hand, afraid to let go, afraid it might vanish if he blinked. Beside him, Lyra stirred. Her silver hair caught the faint sunlight. Glowing like threads of light, she opened her eyes. The soft blue glow flickering weakly, she looked at him for a long moment before whispering his name. Daniel. Her voice was clearer now, broken but stronger than before. Hearing his name in her voice felt strange. It was soft, almost human. He gave her a small smile, though he was still filled with fear. How are you feeling? He asked gently. She tilted her head, searching for words, then said weak but alive, for the first time since that terrible night. Daniel let out a small laugh. It sounded rough, but it was real. The tension in the cave eased just a little for a few moments. They were not human and alien, not hunted prey and rebel soldier. They were simply two beings trying to survive. As the day went on, Daniel helped her sit up. She leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. Her hands trembled when she reached for the stream of water nearby. He helped her drink, their hands brushing. She looked at him with quiet gratitude. But before they could rest longer, Daniel noticed something. Through the crack in the cave entrance, he saw a flicker of movement. His body tensed. He crawled forward carefully, peeking out. His heart sank. In the distance, at the edge of the forest, he saw figures, hunters, still searching. They moved in groups, scanning the ground, their weapons glowing faint red. They had not given up, not even after the long night. He returned to Lyra, whispering quickly, "They are still out there. We can't stay here." Her eyes darkened with worry. She tried to stand, but her legs failed. Daniel caught her before she fell. He held her close, whispering, "It's all right. I'll carry you if I have to." Something changed in her expression. She looked at him with a softness he had not seen before, as if she could not understand why a human, a stranger, would risk so much for her. She touched his arm lightly, her lips forming a single word: trust. They moved together through the forest. Careful and silent, Daniel's strength grew from fear, but also from something else. He wanted to protect her. Not just because she needed him, but because he wanted to. She was no longer just a burden. She was becoming a reason. Hours passed, the sun sank lower, and shadows stretched long. At last they reached the edge of an abandoned village. Houses stood broken, windows shattered. Nature slowly claiming the ruins, Daniel guided her into one of the houses. Its walls still stood strong enough to hide them. Inside they sat near a broken table. The silence was heavy. Daniel looked at the device again. Its soft glow steady in his palm, he whispered, "You said only a human can use this, but why?" "Why me?" Lyra's gaze fixed on him. Her voice came slow, each word heavy. "Your world, energy, life. Key connects with human soul, not mine, yours." Daniel frowned, confused. "So this thing only works with me?" She nodded. Her eyes glowed faintly. "Yes, destiny." The word made his chest tighten. He wanted to laugh, he wanted to shout. He was just a man, not a hero, not a soldier. But her faith in him was unshaken, and deep inside, he felt something he could not deny. Then everything shattered, a noise outside, footsteps. Heavy, quick. Daniel stood at once, gripping the pipe. He peeked through the crack of the broken wall. His blood ran cold. It was not a hunter, it was a human. A man in dirty clothes, his face pale with fear. His eyes darted around. He carried no weapon, only a bag slung across his shoulder. Daniel stepped out carefully. "Hey," he whispered. "Are you all right?" The man jumped, his eyes wide. "You shouldn't be here," he said quickly. "They are searching everywhere if they find you." He stopped mid-sentence. His gaze shifted past Daniel into the house. His eyes froze when he saw Lyra, glowing faintly in the shadows. Daniel's stomach dropped. He rushed forward. "Wait, she's not—" But it was too late. The man stumbled back, terror in his eyes. "She's one of them," he cried. "If they know she's here, they'll kill us all." Before Daniel could stop him, the man turned and ran into the street. His voice rose, shouting into the air, "Over here! Over here!" Daniel's heart stopped. The echo of the man's cries spread through the empty village, and then came the answer, the hunters' voices. Deep and sharp, roaring back in response. Lyra's eyes widened with horror. She tried to stand, her body trembling. "No," she whispered. Her voice shook with fear. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back of the house. His chest burned, his heart racing. The hunters were coming, and this time they knew exactly where to go. The bond that had grown between them in the cave, the trust they had built, was now hanging by a thin thread. Betrayal had found them not from the hunters, but from one of Daniel's own kind, and as the red glow lit up the ruined streets, Daniel realized the fight was no longer about hiding. It was about survival. And the night ahead would be worse than anything they had faced before. The ruined village shook with sound. Daniel pulled Lyra through the back door of the broken house, his chest burning. Behind them, the hunters moved fast, their voices deep and cruel. Their glowing red weapons lit the empty streets like fire. Daniel's mind raced. He had no time to think, only to act. He dragged her behind a wall, both of them crouching low. His hands gripped the strange device tight. Its glow pulsed against his palm like a heartbeat. Lyra's eyes locked onto it, her voice weak but urgent. "Protect. Fight." He shook his head, whispering, "I don't know how to use this. I'm not a soldier. I'm nobody." But she pressed her trembling hand against his chest. Her eyes burned with blue fire. "You are," she whispered. The sound of footsteps grew closer. Hunters filled the street, their shadows tall and sharp against the walls. One raised its weapon, scanning the houses. The beam of red light swept across broken windows, across shattered doors, inching closer to where Daniel and Lyra hid. Daniel's throat tightened. His heart pounded. He looked at Lyra, then at the device. He whispered, "If this is destiny, then so be it." He closed his eyes and held the device with both hands. The glow grew brighter, flooding the room with light. The hunters outside stopped, their voices rising in alarm. The device hummed, and Daniel felt energy surge through him. His skin tingled, his chest burned for a moment. He thought it would kill him, but then the power settled. Alive inside him, he stood, his body trembling but strong. The door burst open. A hunter stepped inside, its weapon raised. Daniel lifted the device without thinking. A wave of blue light exploded outward, smashing into the hunter. The creature roared as it was thrown back, its armor cracking under the force. Daniel stared in shock, his hands shook. He had done that somehow. The power was his. Lyra's eyes widened, hope shining through her weakness. "Yes," she whispered. "You can?" The other hunters stormed the house. Daniel shouted, swinging the device again. Another burst of energy flew out, knocking them back into the street. The walls shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel's fear began to fade, replaced by fire, but the hunters were many. Their shadows moved like an army. They regrouped, spreading across the street. Their weapons glowed brighter, charging. Daniel stepped into the open, Lyra leaning against the wall behind him. Her voice broke through the chaos. "Stand. Fight." Daniel raised the device again, blue light wrapped around him like armor. A shield strong and alive, the hunters fired. Red beams cutting through the air. The shield absorbed them. Sparks flying in every direction, Daniel shouted, his voice echoing through the ruins. He charged forward, swinging the device, waves of energy crashing into the hunters. The fight lit the village in blue and red. Each blast shook the ground. Each strike pushed him further. His arms ached, his chest burned. But he did not stop. He would not stop. He thought of Lyra, of her trust, of the word destiny, and he fought harder. One hunter leapt from the roof, crashing down with claws sharp as blades. Daniel barely raised the shield in time. The force knocked him to the ground. The hunter roared, pressing down. Daniel gritted his teeth, pushing back with every ounce of strength. The device glowed brighter, and with a final shout, he released another burst, blasting the creature into the air. But even as he fought, he saw Lyra stumble. Her hand pressed against her side. Her body was weak, blood dripping from a wound he had not seen. His heart twisted, he ran to her. Catching her before she fell, she looked at him. Her voice faint. "Daniel, you must—" "Finish." He shook his head, tears stinging his eyes. "Not without you," he whispered. But she pushed the device into his hands again. "Only you, human soul." "Stop them." The hunters regrouped, their leader stepping forward, taller than the rest. Its weapon pulsed with deadly light. It roared, the sound shaking the ruins. The army behind it moved as one. Daniel's body shook. His fear returned for a moment, but then he looked at Lyra, at her glowing blue eyes filled with trust, and he stood tall. The device hummed, brighter than ever before. The ground shook under his feet. The leader fired. A massive beam of red light cut through the street. Daniel raised the shield. The blast slammed into him, but he held his ground. His legs dug into the earth, his arms burning, he screamed. Pushing forward, his shield grew, expanding, until it burst outward in a wave of blue fire. Until it burst outward in a wave of blue fire. The explosion shook the village. The hunters were thrown into the air, crashing into walls, their weapons shattering. The leader roared one last time before falling silent. Its mask cracked, its body still. Silence returned, smoke rose from the broken street. The glow of red weapons was gone. Daniel fell to his knees, the device still pulsing in his hand. His body trembled with exhaustion. His chest heaved. He turned to Lyra. She was on the ground, pale and weak. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "You did it," she whispered. Her eyes closed, her body limp. Daniel crawled to her, shaking. "Lyra," he cried softly, holding her in his arms. The device glowed between them, its light steady and strong. The hunters were gone, but the battle was not over, for Daniel knew this was only one fight. And somewhere above, beyond the stars, more would come, but tonight in this broken village, he had stood, he had fought, and he had won. The smoke from the battle hung heavy in the air. Daniel knelt in the ruins of the village, holding Lyra in his arms. Her body felt light, too light, her skin pale as moonlight, her breath shallow. He shook her gently, whispering her name. "Lyra, stay with me, please." Her eyes fluttered open, the faint blue glow weak but alive. She gave him a small smile. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "Daniel." Strong. Her voice was soft, fading, but the pride in her eyes was clear. He felt tears burn his eyes. He had never imagined himself strong, never imagined himself standing against creatures from the stars. Yet here he was, alive, holding the strange device that had turned him into something more. He pressed the glowing object into her hand, whispering, "You need this more than me." but she shook her head weakly, pushing it back into his chest. No. Human soul. Key is yours. Daniel's hands shook. He wanted to argue, he wanted to tell her she was wrong. But the way she looked at him, the way her eyes shone with trust, silenced him. She had chosen him, and there was no turning back. The night was quiet now. The hunters were gone, their bodies scattered among the ruins. But silence did not mean safety. Daniel knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning of something far larger. He carried her into one of the houses still standing. He laid her gently on a broken bed. She winced but did not protest. Her voice came weakly. More will come, bigger army, stronger. Daniel's chest tightened. The thought of more creatures descending on Earth filled him with dread. He whispered, Then we fight, we'll be ready. She looked at him with tired eyes, and for the first time she let out a small laugh. It was soft, broken, but real. For a few hours they rested. The night passed slowly. Daniel stayed awake, keeping watch, holding the device close each time he glanced at Lyra. He felt a strange pull, a bond deeper than words. She was not just an alien, not just a stranger. She was someone who had changed his life. When morning came, the sun rising over the broken village, Lyra stirred again. Her voice was faint but steady. Daniel, listen. He leaned closer, desperate to hear. She pointed at the device. Not only weapon, also message. His brow furrowed. He turned the device in his hand, the glow shifted, symbols appearing in the air like floating light. They twisted and rearranged, forming shapes, words he could not understand. But then, as if sensing him, the message translated. A voice spoke, cold and mechanical, echoing through the ruins. This is the Vanguard Empire, it said. Our forces will arrive soon. Prepare for surrender, or face extinction. Daniel's blood ran cold. The message ended with silence. The weight of it pressed on him like stone. It was not just a hunt for Lyra. It was the beginning of an invasion. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with pain and determination. Now you know, she whispered, why I run, why I fight. Her voice broke. I cannot stop them alone. Daniel clenched his fists. His fear was still there, but something else burned stronger. Resolve. He thought of the hunters, of the power inside the device, of Lyra's trust. He nodded slowly. You're not alone anymore. Her eyes softened. And for the first time, Daniel saw hope shining in them. She reached out, her weak hand touching his. The warmth of her touch was strange yet comforting. 2 lives from 2 worlds bound together by fate. The hours that followed were quiet. Daniel helped her drink, helped her stand for a few moments. She leaned against him, her steps weak but steady. Each moment felt fragile, but also important. Every second reminded him that his world had changed forever. By nightfall, they stood outside the ruins. The stars above shone cold and endless. Lyra looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. My people, dangerous, cruel, but also afraid. They fear what they cannot control. She turned to him. You, Daniel, are what they fear. He stared at her. Confused, me. She nodded. A human with courage, with soul, with choice. That is stronger than their army. Her words struck deep. He was still just a man. But now he carried something far greater than himself. He carried the trust of another world. And the future of his own. Suddenly the device pulsed again. A new voice echoed, softer this time, not cold but warning. Time is short. The war begins. Daniel gripped it tightly. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly in the night. No words were needed. They both knew what this meant. The fight was not over. It was only just beginning. He stood taller, his fear pushed aside. For the first time, he felt not like prey, but like a warrior. His destiny was no longer his own. It belonged to something greater. As the stars burned above them, Daniel whispered to himself. That night changed everything. His voice was steady, his heart strong. He looked at Lyra, and she gave him the smallest smile. A promise in her eyes, together, human and alien. They stepped forward into the unknown. The future was uncertain. The war was coming. But one thing was clear. Daniel's destiny had changed forever.